Hello everybody, welcome back to Hard for Games. I'm Tony.
I'm Dan.
And I'm John.
Today we are rocking SEGA 32X SHMUPS. That is shoot-em-ups on the poor man's Sega Saturn.
That's right, we're talking today about everyone's favorite stack-on peripheral for the Sega Genesis, the SEGA 32X.
We did a series in 2009 where we did SEGA 32X SHMUPS. We promised we would go back to it, and it's been 7 years.
Here we are, and not a year too soon.
That's right. So first off, gentlemen, we're going to start with Space Harrier for the 32X. So Space Harrier is an arcade port, and at the time, the 32X version was by far the best version. There was a Master System version, there was a Genesis version, and they were plagued by frame rate issues. One of the great things about this particular game is that it runs at a variable frame rate, but for the most part, it's at 30 frames per second. In our previous series, we covered Afterburner. I kind of consider Space Harrier and Afterburner to be somewhat sibling games, both made by Sega. They both have a very similar 3D effect with the way that they use their sprites.
Yeah.
And both of them are just amazing on the 32X. The only issue with this game is really that it's not quite as smooth in terms of the frame rate as the arcade version. Totally ignoring the arcade version.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the graphics for what they are. What do you think about this?
I like it. I think it's rendering a lot of things at the same time. The background moves pretty smoothly. Disregard the fireball I was just hit in the face by. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't show a large amount of frame rate loss. Even though that's kind of the standard concern with this title, there's less of it than one might be led to believe.
And I would also say that it handles much better than any of the other versions I've seen the forced perspective that it's trying to do.
Yeah.
Like you notice they almost like an emulated camera angle shift, even though that isn't technically what's actually happening.
We're talking a lot about the frame rate here, but the colors are just awesome.
It's brilliant.
You know, it's kind of like a 1980s future look, which is your very crazy neon purples and greens and blues.
Yes. Marty McFly leaving his girlfriend passed out on top of a pile of recycled laser discs.
It always draws pretty cleanly, and at no point does the fact that it's trying to draw several bazillion things at the same time interfere with gameplay, and that's big for me.
Yeah.
A lot of games of this vintage, when they got really carried away with trying to cram things into the screen, they forgot that the point of a game was to interact with it. And subsequently, both gameplay quality and control response, everything that makes a game enjoyable started to suffer. At no point do the controls really lag on this title. No matter what's drawing, in this case, an entire Easter island or a desert or spaceships.
Sure, that is a Moai.
Sir, you can go fuck yourself.
You just interrupted him. What about the actual gameplay? So just forget about how the graphics affect that. Is the gameplay fun?
Yes. It's very, very simple in a lot of ways. I mean, you basically have a D-pad and a shoot things button.
Yes.
While I'd kind of wish for a crosshair at times because, well, fair and square, you are guessing as to where you're shooting at any given moment, and the funny camera angle doesn't help that completely. It's still very enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of an oddball gameplay format, and I really like it.
I definitely like this as much as I like Afterburner. I consider them sister games, and I really like Afterburner. I think it's fun. I wouldn't play this for hours, but it would take $3, $4, $5 worth of quarters at the arcade. I could definitely see it doing that for sure.
Yeah. Easy.
So next up, we're gonna be rocking Zaxxon Motherbase 2000.
And based on the cover art and back art for this Zaxxon's Motherbase 2000, which, by the way, guarantees it was made before 2000.
Basically.
I cannot wait to play this. It looks like either a diamond in the rough or a massive piece of shit. I have no idea which yet.
Cheers to that.
The key is the element of surprise.
That's right. Now, this is supposedly in the Zaxxon series, which Zaxxon was an arcade game where you had an isometric view. And it was also a shoot-em-up. Space shooter.
At a glance, that makes sense, but
here's the thing, and it makes you question whether this is actually truly a Zaxxon game or they just tacked on the Zaxxon name for marketing purposes. In Europe, this game is just called Motherbase. In Japan, it's just called Parasquad. So it's similar to a Zaxxon game, but is it? Was it originally meant to be? I don't know. So it's questionable. Some other differences in Zaxxon, you can change your height. In this game, you cannot, but you can jump.
You can tell they're making good use of the 32X processing power because everything moves relatively smoothly.
And the pre-rendered background that they have looks good
Yeah.
too. Think about it like Final Fantasy VII, right? So it had pre-rendered backgrounds and it had polygonal characters, right? So,
Yes.
and you remember that game as being beautiful, but the reason why you remember it is because the pre-rendered backgrounds were
gorgeous.
amazing and the cutscenes were amazing, but if the whole game were those blocky-ass characters, you would think the game looked like ass.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
so
that's-
there was a rhyme and a reason for doing something like that.
I mean, if the rectangle named Cloud was hitting the Cloud named Sephiroth as the entire game, well, it would lose some of the impact.
For sure.
They're really making the best use of the backgrounds
Are
here.
you saying Aerith died, Bush lied?
Yes.
Yes.
Overall, I would say graphically, this game does look good. Now, are the polygons really rough? Yes.
Yeah.
Are the polygons untextured? Yes. Was it common for the 32X to have textured polygons? No.
No, not particularly.
So
Well,
this
I
is
mean, it
kinda
was
par for the
fairly
course.
uncommon throughout the 90s until like the later 90s to have fully textured polygons. That's
Right.
really tasking for hardware at the time.
So, John, what do you think about the music and the sound?
It is both amazing and terrible at the same time. Like the do 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 do, but the in the middle of it is like, what are you doing here, kid?
It sounds like a dying pterodactyl that's just like crying as it swoops to its death into a tree.
And you can kind of figure that it was one of those, okay guys, this needs to be done tomorrow by like 6 p.m. sort of deals. Because all of a sudden, it really does just sound like a dying modem.
But what about the actual gameplay? Is this a fun game? And can you also explain some of the mechanics behind it?
All right, so it's a very simple shoot 'em up. The actual fighting area is very confined. If you fly too far off to one side, despite being in a spaceship, you fall to your death.
Is that what just happened?
Yes,
that's
that is in
exactly
fact
what
just
Oh
what
my
happened.
god, okay.
So that's something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because
No.
the funny thing about spaceships is that they fly typically. That part I don't really get. And it although to be perfectly fair, it does add an element of challenge to the mech boss fight.
I was also going to say it's odd that you fell out of a space station because traditionally space has very little gravity.
Yeah.
You know, it's the darndest thing, isn't it?
So basically, you kind of have two different game modes in this. You have your ship, and you can jump into a shell ship, but you can also use a jump mechanic as well when you're in the smaller one. How does this all work within the realm of the game?
Well, so it does provide two distinct gameplay formats. The small ship, when you're outside of the shell ship, is very, very frail, and it takes a single hit to destroy it.
Ooh.
So you probably could/should use the jump mechanic just to survive. However, in the shell ship, it can take a little bit of damage. You can withstand some hits, which is useful because it can't jump, it can't maneuver to speak of. Subsequently, your choice is a much more straight up fight with that ship.
Okay.
That said, the jump mechanic itself does feel a little tacked on.
Okay.
So the game feels less like its namesake and more like an ISO Galaga in a lot of ways, just because it's not an integral part of the gaming experience, I think is the right way to say it.
So realistically, I mean, they could have almost just not had a jump button and just a button you press when you're near a ship that you can go into, and it could just have auto done that.
Yeah.
Basically. Overall, what do we think about this in terms of an enjoyment level?
I still find it fun. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's clever. It's more about the graphics and less about the gameplay than was Space Harrier.
Okay. So this is more of a gimmicky title.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know, almost tedious by comparison. All right, so that's it for Shoot 'em Ups for the SEGA 32X. At long last, our series is done.
Well, there's actually one more game. It's called Dark Side. It came out in Europe only. Very rare. Goes for about $1,000. So at the moment, we're going to be skipping that one. But I might have a reproduction copy coming in soon.
Ooh,
so stay
okay.
tuned for that. But aside from that, we hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.
Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a share, and we will see you guys next time.